Good morning. This is Carl Dakin, and this is the Successful Funding Show. In this show, we're here to share information on raising funding. Our primary focus is small and growing businesses, but we also talk about funding for charities, community projects, government programs, where they all come together with the same need for somebody else's money to make their vision happen. So today I have with me again Michael Feely with the Renaissance League, and we're going to talk about getting to yes or avoiding slow maybes, which is something we'll explain here in a moment. But thank you for being with us today. We have a chat capability, so if anybody who is viewing this live would like to pose a question to Michael or myself or dive deep into one of the things we talked about today, you're very much invited to do so. And if you can't be with us today live, this show is recorded. It will be shown on both LinkedIn and YouTube forever. So you'll have lots of time to go back and review this. And if you should have a question about anything, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to take a question and send it to me at this address. Or you can go to my website, which is dakincapital.com, and you can try to get a hold of me that way, or you can ask Cap, my AI avatar, created by Knowledge Avatars, any of the same questions you might ask me. Right now, it's kind of 50-50 whether I'll give you a better answer than Cap, but he's getting smarter every day. So it's been interesting to see his continual training and evolution. So we'll come back to that later, and we'll get started. So Michael and I are involved in raising funding for the Renaissance League. And if you haven't seen a prior show, this is a new sports entertainment organization that is fan centric, meaning that the purpose of this is to create joy and entertainment for the fans of sports. And in particular, we're talking about the sport of rugby. And more particularly, we're talking about female rugby, meaning that we're talking about girls and women ages 8 to 80 who all are coming together to enjoy a sport, and in this one, again, rugby, and have a chance to play, participate, and learn. And potentially, some of the more talented people may rise up and become a professional rugby player, might even go on to play on the US national team. So these are all possibilities, but the vast majority of everybody is just there to enjoy a sport, either as a participant or as a viewer. And we're going to see what we can do for that. Now, we've been raising money in a seed capital campaign. And as any of you who have been in charge of capital campaigns know, sometime people will come up to you and tell you to your face, I will make an investment. And that commitment to make an investment is not necessarily followed by action, meaning that there are words, but no check. And this is not only disappointing, but it is a challenge to the organization, to the strategy of the capital campaign. It can cause a variety of other issues. Um, and uh, and so this is the theme of today's program: is getting to yes, which is a sales issue, sales objective. But we're also trying to do what's called avoiding a slow maybe. And this is, as I described it, someone who says they're going to invest and never quite gets around to it. And you spend a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to get them to do what they said they were going to do, and ultimately find yourself disappointed that they failed to take action. So we're going to talk about this in a variety of different perspectives in terms of how this happens, what you can do to mitigate or avoid it. We're going to talk about different strategies that will minimize any harm to your organization because of the fact that this investment did not arrive. And hopefully this will help everyone in the audience today do a little bit better in conducting their capital campaigns, maybe take out the lows of these bad days when you find out that somebody's been stringing you along and won't do what they said they were going to do, which is always a disappointment. So we'll go from there. So Michael, welcome to the show today. Again, assume that no one has ever seen your face before, knows nothing about the Renaissance League. So give everybody a short background briefing on who you are and what you're doing.
Mike Feely. My background is in sports development. I'm the founder of Citizen Sports, and we have launched the Renaissance League as a new sustainable sports ecosystem for, in this case, women's rugby, but really it's transferable across all sports, all locations. Three sort of main objectives there is participation growth, competitive success, and sustainable commerce. Without sustainable commerce, you can't really have the other two long term. We're currently in the seed round, which sort of gets back to what you were talking about. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so the stage is set. We have a crowdfunding campaign going along. We're talking to different investor candidates. These are people who look like they may write a check, put an investment into this. Motivated money is what's behind me. This is my method to go about identifying those people who are most likely to invest. And as much work as you do in profiling, analysis, testing the waters, all these kinds of things, ultimately the day will come where you're going to contact one of these investor candidates. You're going to wave your hand or put the stop sign up and go, hey, I want to talk to you about investing in this project. And at that point, you started the pitch, which is and will be a multiple stage, multiple contact interaction with an investor candidate to make them aware that you're raising money, to give them information about the opportunity, to potentially demonstrate how your service or technology product, whatever it works. And you're in an educational sales mode, trying to get them to a point where they see that an investment is in their own self-interest, and that not only is it in their self-interest, but you as a choice in where they're going to make their investment is a superior choice over all the other people who are looking to get money from the same investor candidate. So there's lots and lots of things that go into that. But we'll start off with just the first contact. And the general rule of thumb is that you would like to have people pre-qualified, lined up, ready to go when you start a capital campaign. And there are a number of statistics that indicate if you can get 30% or more of your goal in the first 30 days of your campaign, then you have a high probability of hitting your optimum, maximum capital goal and being successful in your campaign. So with that, Michael, let's first talk about who do you see are the investor candidates that are most likely to invest? What's their motivation? Why would they want to be involved? And let's talk about that a little bit before we get into that first contact.
Yeah, there could be a number of motivations. Some of them they might have multiple. Some of them they might have only one. When we work through sort of identifying certain investor candidates for ourselves, we talked about it could be people that are just interested in solving some of the problems in youth sports. It could be people that are interested in women's sports or female rugby in particular, or just rugby in general. When we went through that analysis, I think we identified probably 15 or 20 very, very strong prospects. We've spoken to all of them by this point, and probably around 30% were no, 30% were, oh, I'm interested, 30% were yes, but timing or other reasons might be I'm not prepared to invest in the seed round. It could be that I'm going to wait and see if you can hit more milestones. Quite often, a lot of people, when you start a campaign, will be more positive, but when it comes time to actually write a check, then they get a little bit hesitant. And ultimately, that comes down to your ability to sort of check boxes, hit milestones while you're doing this and bootstrapping it. So we identified a number of people, and then again, there are existing businesses and organisations already operating in the space. We need to find out how we can help them potentially, where we can tie into some stuff versus it being brand new. Anything that can really make the transition to us operating smoother, and it's not just a capital thing, although capital helps.
Yeah, so what this brings us back to is that, as a first thing, as you're planning a capital campaign, you need to figure out who's most likely to invest, who has the greatest motivation, who may need you, as I call it, who's a funding soulmate, who needs you more than you need them, because they cannot succeed in their mission without the success of your business or project or program. And you create all these profiles, and then you start looking at everybody in your network, trying to figure out who fits into one of these different profiles. And again, back to the 3 keys of raising funding is that first, there has to be a level of trust, meaning that the person you're talking to as a candidate has to believe that what you're telling them is true or reasonably accurate, not disregarding the risk, but understanding that you're capable, competent, a good person. You're not going to take their money and run. You're not going to waste their money. They're looking for that ability to put their resources with you under your responsibility. The second thing is they have to have money. And as Michael alluded to there, quite often when you talk to someone who seems to meet all the criteria for a high priority investor candidate, they may not have any money at the time. They could be rich, but they don't have any cash right now. Their money may be tied up in another investment, real estate, something where they can't get to it, and they don't want to necessarily borrow against it or take a loan against the asset or do something else. And so they're temporarily unavailable, which doesn't do you a lot of good because the money's not changing hands. The third thing, which I was referring to earlier, is that no matter who you talk to who can write a check, there are other people also asking them for money. And you're in a competition. It could be a foot race where there's only 2 or 3 of you that are competing for that one person's attention for the money that's in their bank account. But more often than not, it's in the tens or dozens, maybe even thousands. If you start talking to a private equity firm or a venture capitalist or some kind of institutional money, the competition just gets bigger, it gets harder, and your ability to differentiate, distinguish yourself becomes so important at that point in time. And that'll come back to some of the conversations that we're going to have. But so we've gone through the process of trying to identify who these people are. Each of these people have a slightly different motivation, and keep this in mind that every investor is unique. Even if they look like they're clones, they were born as twins, they wear the same clothing, they attend the same functions, whatever, they all make their decisions differently. And it may be a timing issue because their kids, one group has got kids going into college, so it's a drain on their money. It may be something else where they're in a business deal that's going sideways. There's more reasons not to invest than there ever will be to invest. And these may take these people out of the game. This is a a player to be named later. It's a person on the injured reserve list, but they're not. You can't put them on the field today. They're not going to be able to do something. Um, one of the best things you can do, and we're going to come back to this again repeatedly during the program, is know your investor candidate. If you know who they are, and we'll get more detail on that, then it'll be easier for you to project whether or not they will invest. So this is why quite often you start with people who are within your own network, one, because they know you and getting to a trust level is much easier, but it also allows you to kind of look behind the curtain, understand where the person's coming from, and get a better idea whether they can invest and whether they should invest. And I sometimes at this point put on what I call my financial advisor hat, which I'm not. And I'm not a licensed financial advisor, but if I were their gatekeeper, their advisor, would this be a good investment for them? Or would this be a stretch? Is this something maybe they shouldn't get into because they're too spread too thin? This doesn't fit them that well, it won't give them enough benefit. And we have to, be respectful of the investor candidate, where they're at and what they're going to do. So Michael, all this work that we did to get ready for this campaign, we identified some people that told us to our face, we're going to do something, we're going to make an investment, or we're going to bring you an investor. How does that happen? How do you describe the situation where you're getting these commitments?
Well, there's two sides to it, really. There's the people that you know and how long you've known them for, like you said. So in our example, people that are aware of the project, aware of what we're trying to accomplish, understand the risks and rewards, understand the challenges that we're trying to overcome, recognize that the business plan addresses a lot of these challenges or issues that you're trying to bring to market, because then they can see that you have a business, right? There's a product that is gonna fill a need, because the customers are crying out for it or whatever. It's a bit different or more complicated in the sports situation or what we're doing, but ultimately it comes back down to like market fit. And if you've got a good relationship and you've been talking to people for a long time about certain things, then they can understand where you're going, what you're trying to do. You've also got that trust and that longer term relationship. But again, still, it's no guarantee that they're going to put money in it. Something might spook them that's you're doing, or something might spook them that's not you're doing. There's a lot going on in the economy right now that the capital markets are very challenging, and that's true for everyone.
Let me just jump in there. This again gets into kind of the difference between talking to a buddy, a friend, a long-term relationship, and putting on your hat as the head of raising capital, where you need to ask harder questions, so to speak. And I recommend, this is a practice tip, but the first time you talk to somebody about investing and they are indicating that they're interested in investment, they haven't necessarily made commitment yet, you need to get to the heart of the issue real quick. And that is, are you a person who can invest today? And this goes a couple different directions. One is, do they have the money? Item number 2 on the list. And because if they don't, then this is just an interesting conversation that's taking up your time that you could better spend talking to somebody else.
Yeah.
But if they do tell you that they're interested in investing, they do have the money, then you almost have to pin them against the wall and ask them the harder questions. You can't softball it at this point in time. This is, I'm going to use all these sports references today, but you have to say, okay, based on what you heard, would you invest today? And if they say no, then that's taken care of. That's the answer you're looking for, actually,
Yeah.
rather than a maybe. Now, if they say maybe, then you have to take it to the next level, which is what's missing? What
Yeah.
is necessary for you to invest? And this could be any number of things from do I need to do this? Do you need to hear that? Do you know? And you're now trying to get from them some idea of their checklist, their criteria for investing. As they call it in sales, you want to remove the obstacles to the completion of the sale. What objections do you have that you need to do? And you need to get them on the table. So, Michael, what kind of objections or questions have you heard that might have given you indication or a signal that one of these people who said yes and then said no, um, was not really going to invest? Anything that would give the viewer some insight to
Yeah. Well, first things first, like you said, it's a bullet to the head is better than a bullet to the gut sort of thing. You want a quick no, right? It's an easy thing to deal with because now you've got to pivot and ask different or better questions. A lot of the times people will sort of say, well, yeah, I'm interested. We've experienced this where someone wanted to see more milestones accomplished and before putting money in. And essentially you want to avoid getting into a situation where you're in the catch-22 that you've got everything lined up. You can achieve more milestones very quickly, very readily with that capital, but then they want to see those before they put that capital in. So it's the cart before the horse kind of thing. It's a bit of a challenge, but ultimately, and we've experienced this again where certain objections come up, you overcome them, and then there's a new set. So it's just moving the goalposts, and really, it's avoiding asking the hard question and giving you the hard answer, which is a straight no. Lots of reasons. People might be genuinely interested. They're on the fence. They're not sure. They want to find out. It might just be as simple that they're trying to be polite and not hurt anyone's feelings. It's business. Your feelings don't matter, right? So get to the quick no, move on, because there's no hard like, okay, thanks. Like, it's your money. You don't have to give it to me. I'm trying to make a proposal that seems like it's worthwhile. It's still a sale to some extent. Well, to every extent, but it's not like I'm selling you a cable package doing door to door or something like that. But when I did that back in the day, it was all about getting a quick no, move on, knock on the next door. And that's true of the capital campaign, really. You have to find out what the objections are, overcome them. If you can't, move on, because you're just going to be stood in the doorway.
Right. So there's so many things to talk about here, but first I want to reach out to our audience. Thanks for the people who are viewing today. We have Usman with us. Usman regularly follows this program and my newsletter, Instant Funding, that's published on LinkedIn. And good to have you with us this morning. And then we have Kevin Hawthorne from Lakeland, Florida. Kevin, thanks for being with us. Appreciate your viewing. If you have some questions, chip in. We have a comment from one of the people following this that says, getting investors yes means a fully prepared institutional grade package, a clear capital stack, and structures aligned with investor interest. Focus on resolving concerns, not debating positions, and maintain transparent and disciplined, there's more here, disciplined communication. That's how sponsors close faster and build lasting investor trust. I think this is a good thing to talk about here, in that when you first talk to that investor and they say that they're interested, as Michael's saying, you need to get to a quick no. And that means even if they're your buddy, your mom, or somebody else you're talking to, about putting money into your deal, you have to kind of stop, I will call it the friendship relationship and move to the business relationship and go, hey, Dale, you've been my buddy for 20 years. You've told me you're interested. Can you write a check today? And anything then a clear today yes is a maybe. Don't interpret it any other way. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing because a pitch is actually have to go through a number of stages. You need to make the person aware. You got to get them up to speed. You have to give them enough information to make an informed decision. You have to overcome objections. You have to get them ready to invest, and that does mean taking time investing in that conversation. And you're not going to typically get a check the first time you ask. I've only done it twice in 46 years, so it's a low probability situation. But as this person who's in the viewing audience comments, is the first time that you get a maybe, you need to ask the next question of what's your biggest concern about making an investment? And you have to be prepared to answer that quick question, that concern, address it clearly, concisely, professionally, because if they hit you with a question they think should be obvious that you should know the answer to or how to go about it, and you can't answer it, your credibility, that first criteria of trust, starts degrading, it starts dissipating, and you may never get them back because they're like, well, he's figuring this out as we go. He is not prepared. He doesn't understand his market. He doesn't know his business operations, doesn't know any of these things. And so why would I give him my money? Why would I put my money at risk with that person? And so even if you're not pitching to a private equity company or a venture capital company, you still want to have all this information. You want it assembled, ready to go. It's like saying, pick a card. You ask a question, I have an answer. You have, in fact, I not only can answer your question to the level that you asked me, but I can go one or two levels deeper because I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm going. All these things are there, and so basically, you ask the question, and then you have to ask the hard question: is that information good enough for you to make an investment? You're constantly testing, retesting, because if the guy says, no, I have another question, then let's get to that other question. Don't assume because you answered the first question correctly, precisely, optimally, that you're done. You have to go back and say, okay, we've just reset, rebooted our computer, our pitch. Do you have any questions? And you go through this series. So, Michael, what were some of the questions that you may have been asked that maybe in hindsight you're thinking maybe I should have answered that differently, or maybe I should have asked a question back to that person that would have helped identify that they were not going to make an investment, or now's not the right time, or some other reason why you won't get the check today?
That's a good question.
Thank you. I try to do that. That's my job as the host of it.
There's a couple of things that spring to mind. Early on, some of the feedback that we had gotten, clearly they were using ChatGPT or some sort of AI to assess offering documents and proposals and so on. And we had to create somewhat of a rebuttal to say that artificial intelligence is basing this on the past. It can't predict the future. It doesn't understand the differences or nuances in the sports structure that we're trying to put in place for this new sort of economic ecosystem. That was one thing. And so it's sort of taking a step back, understanding how people are looking at this, what kind of questions they're answering, and trying to create responses. And then a different one was, for example, just, what's the qualifications of these people? Who are these guys? What's the team leading it? Okay, well, it's on the website. It's in the offering documents as a bio, or we had a summary, but then we added more richer bios, more information.
but make a point there, Michael. We were convinced that of the first 10 or 20 people that we pitched to, that maybe one or two of them actually looked at the documents, meaning that if they read through them, even the summary, that was separating them from the vast majority of people. There was this kind of, I don't want to take the time, I don't want to read the documents. I just want to, get a feel for it. And this is a bad sign. I think that as a rule, again, this may be a test question that you give to an investor candidate. You go, well, you've expressed interest in this. Let me first give you an executive summary or an overview of the opportunity. And I want you to read it, and then I'll come back to you and ask you some questions, which will basically reflect whether you read it or not, or you're serious or not, or you don't have time even to engage in a review of the pitch documents. And in some ways, it's a snap quiz for the student and saying, well, if you can't pay enough attention to this whole presentation that I've spent weeks and months and years maybe getting ready to pitch, maybe you would be a bad investor. Not that I don't want to take your money, but you're not paying attention at a point that we think is critical to us, but more critical to you as the investor. What are you doing making relatively feel good gut decision making on investing? That doesn't necessarily bring to mind that you're going to be a good investor, and that you're going to come back to us time and time again in the future and go, you never told me that. And go, yes, we did. It's in the document here. And they'll go, oh. And then they'll say, I didn't read that. And you're like, yeah, but we shouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, but to be honest with you, if you're, well, there's ethical concerns there. If you've taken someone's money and they still don't fully understand it, like, shame on them, because they should fully understand, or understand as much as possible, so that they're not asking asinine questions. But also, because some of those things should be fairly obvious. We've encountered that with different conversations, but also, like, if someone doesn't fully understand something, you should try to make sure that they understand it as much as you're able to before you take money from them. I don't like the idea of just pulling money in from anywhere, just to move things forward. Is that creates more challenges and more issues down the road. It erodes trust, more importantly, because now this guy's going, well, he took my money, but he didn't really explain it, or it's just going to create objections and issues later on.
Well, and this presents its own challenges because early in my career, I assumed that somebody who had the money to invest was going to be smart enough, bright enough, professional enough to ask the right questions, to demonstrate to me their proficiency in making investments, that they had a set of investment criteria to allow them to choose between one deal and the next. And it took a while, a lot longer than I would like to admit, but it took years for me to finally realize that a person with a checkbook doesn't necessarily come with a brain, come with any experience in making investments, any training, any skill set, anything. And even if they have invested, even if they're an angel investor in the local angel investment club, I still might ascribe to them not smarter than a fifth grader in terms of making investments. They weren't born an investor. This is a developed skill, a training thing that they have to get to. And to the extent they are not, the lead point person with a private equity fund, and I don't mean by that an MBA student that they pulled in who thinks they know everything and knows relatively nothing. I'm talking about, the guy who really should be able to evaluate the deal. Most investors you talk to are not going to meet that level of proficiency, and it's on you to help them understand the deal. And while you're doing that, then you have to keep testing. Do you have enough information to make an investment? Have you considered this also? Because some of their questions may point to weaknesses in their thinking or how they see and understand the marketplace. And this is an opportunity for you to shine. You can go, well, this market is doing this, this is where it's going to, here's how we fit into that market, why we think we can be competitive within the market. But it's more that, but if they've never read any of the documents, it's a red flag. Just
Well,
post
and
it up.
to that point, everything is new. So if an investor or a company or some businessman, whatever, if they were already doing things how you're proposing in this new business, that whatever you come up with, then you're wasting your time anyway, because the product already exists. You're not bringing anything new to market. But assume then that you're talking to them because they're not doing it that way. You think they would benefit from doing it a certain way, and that's why you've brought this company to market and you're trying to raise capital for it. But everything's brand new. So up until the world was round, it was flat. And so you have to completely change the whole conversation and explain why. And that could be again and again and again, and there's a little bit more information, a little bit more information, a little bit more information. But ultimately, it's not that they have no brain, it's that their brain isn't programmed to work and think a certain way about whatever it is you're talking about. And again, like I said, up until the world became round, it was flat, and that was normal for everyone. And that's what introducing a new product or a new idea into a marketplace is basically all about. You have to completely change the conversation, the way people think, and eventually get to a consensus that, yeah, this is a better explanation, this is a better idea or a better way of doing things.
Yeah, so you've got 2 points there I want to beat up on, but before I do that, I want to say hello to Pacific. He's in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and he has an interest in doing some sports projects in that part of the world. So
Excellent.
I apologize on the air for not being as responsive, but I do have a crowdfunding platform in Africa that I want to introduce you to that may help with that. But as we're looking at sports in the US, I feel that we have an obligation to see what we can do to help sports in countries like the Congo, where we may be able to take advantage of the value of currency, our access to stuff that's cheaper, better, quicker, a number of things where we can help out local sports teams, leagues, and unions in other countries. And so through the Citizen Sports Foundation, we are putting together a plan where every time we support a new team here in the United States, we're going to try to match or mirror that in another country. And that's still on the drawing board. It's still unfunded. So don't get ready to receive a check yet or a package with a bunch of kit and equipment in it, but we'll be talking more on that. So getting to Michael's point about if you're going to be bringing a new business into the world, it should be doing something new or different. Otherwise, you're competing with everybody that's there. And understanding that difference may be very nuanced, meaning that a person who doesn't know the industry, doesn't know the business, you're saying, well, when I serve coffee, we're going to have the cups right side up. And people go, well, everybody does that, don't they? And if that's true, then you haven't done anything different. But if you decide to put the cup, with a heat holder around it so that when you hold the cup, you don't burn your hand, is that enough to cause people to go across the street to your coffee shop or drive through your drive-through? You need to explain all that, to explain why this makes a difference, how you're competitive, and how that it happens. And that's an educational moment for you to build your credibility, but educate the person. And one of the things you can do is kind of after you describe your difference, your superiority, whatever it is you want to do there, you might give them a quiz and go, okay, Dale, now that I've told you how cool we are and how different, unique we are, can you repeat that back to me in your own words? This is another type of quiz where you're basically trying to verify, validate that they heard what you said, they understood it, comprehension is above 5%, it's somewhere closer to 100%. And like a good student, they can tell you what it is. Another way of doing that is to say, hey, well, Dale, if you decide to invest, we'd like for you to tell all your friends, everybody in your network, we want to go viral with this, and we're going to be depending upon you to tell some other people that may also invest. Could you share with me how you would tell a friend, a colleague, an associate about our deal? Because I want to hear how you present it. And this is another way of testing their reception of the information and going forward. And this is very important because their ability to tell a friend is critical to the success of your capital campaign, unless you already have identified all your prospects. But I'm going to make one more observation. This is a little bit to the side, but if you go out to raise money and you talk to a service company about how they're going to help you raise money, whether it's an SEO company, it's analysis, a strategist, somebody that is supposed to be helping you, quite often they'll go, we're going to do a compare contrast with everybody else in the industry. And at that point, you have to ask yourself, and what are you doing? Because if your product's different, comparing with everybody else, other than that one difference that you have, is a waste of time and money. And I've had arguments over and over again. We'll go, we're just going to pull data from the internet. It's going to tell us how people do things. We're going, that's fine, but that's yesterday's news. That's not tomorrow's news. And we're doing something different. And that difference, we believe, is important enough that it will make this an investable opportunity. So if you get somebody that starts asking you how you compare and contrast, the focus in your pitch is on the difference, not on the commonalities or similarities. So Michael, again, we're talking with someone, they're telling us what we want to hear. Hey, I'm going to invest. Based upon our recent experiences with a couple of people who said yes and then said no, what else could we have done to better set the table to basically pin them against the wall and get the correct answer for what's there? What, anything else come to mind?
I mean, from personal experience with a friend of mine, I just wish I'd have got to the no quicker. And I think it would have been, if in this instance, if I'd have been less worried about the relationship and more focused on the business side, I would have got there. But again, it's like, what are the objections? Okay, we've overcome them. Now what? Well, then there's a new set of objections. Okay, we've overcome them. Now what? And it's part of the process is to try and overcome them as quickly as possible and get back round to the question. But I think, you know, for all intents and purposes, the one candidate was ideal. I've known the guy for 20 years, works in the same space, identifies all the same issues and challenges, agrees that we've come up with certain solutions, and eventually it was still a no, or well, it wasn't a no, it was a not yet. I want to wait and see more milestones in this. Well, okay, like there's not much you can do beyond answering all those questions, and rather than, you know, not falling out or anything, you just, okay, fine, but I've got to move on and focus and talk to other people, because again, it's you need capital to accomplish milestones. Once you accomplish milestones, you can attract more capital, build a bigger, better team. And that's certainly what we focused on in the first sort of 60 days, was getting everyone in position that where we need a product or a service and something done or designed or built or whatever, and especially a lot of technologies going into what we're working on for the Renaissance League. We've done that, and we've built a strong team, and there's a lot of expertise, and we kept putting out the updates and the constant communication, like the guest commented, or the viewer commented rather.
Well, I think this is where you get into I will say you're deviating from a classical sales. Sales is, as Michael described it, is get the close the sale, get the deal done, get the check, move on. But because this is an investment, you kind of have to validate that this is the right deal for the person you're talking to. And part of that, as Michael described it, is it might be the right deal later on after you've achieved a number of milestones, after you've reduced the risk by achievement of those milestones. And you're going to invite basically a no, but again, that's better than getting strung out forever with a slow maybe. So when you're talking to them, if you see any point that they seem to be hesitant about, or they don't see, their eyes kind of glaze over, or something's going on, you can start saying, here's the milestones that we see that we're going to accomplish, providing we get funding, everything goes well. There's not another tariff that's going to wreck this business model, or there's not flooding in the country where we're planning to get our kit and equipment, or 20 other things that we have no control over.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you ask them, you go, would you be more comfortable investing later? And this seems like a terrible thing to do as a salesperson, but we're not selling candy bars here. We're actually trying to get a relationship with a person that we can build upon over time. If our sole objective was to get a check, then you're doing this all wrong. You want your investor to be on your team. You want them to be a cheerleader, as an advocate for
engaged.
You want them all, you want to check all the boxes of how strong this great relationship is. So you got to ask them. You go, would you be more comfortable waiting till later? And then ask them more questions about that. And if you start getting too many of these, well, I would like to see this, or I'd like to see that, then you may yourself assign a no to this person. And some people would call this a reverse sales pitch, but it's not really. You're saying, what I'm hearing is that you're not going to be comfortable enough today to make a decision now and write me a check. And so I think that it would be best if I come back to you later, after we've knocked down a few of our milestones and we're a little further along the path to our success, and ask you again, would you agree with me or not? And what I see I'm doing is I'm trying to tip the person over the wrong way and say, no, I'm trying to get to a no. Because I'd rather have a no than this constant, I've talked to you 25 times and I still can't seem to pin you down, because every time I'm talking to them, I'm not talking to somebody else. And this is one of the biggest challenges, the biggest errors of entrepreneurs in raising money, is talking to everybody. You simply don't have the time to talk to everybody, to go through a multiple stage pitch presentation. And you need to get to know sooner rather than later. If they're never going to invest, every minute that you put into the conversation, all the materials you send them, the different emails and conversations and so forth, may be a complete waste. And you have no room for error as you go down this path. You need to talk to somebody. You need to determine, the level and quality of the relationship, their potential to invest. You need to knock down their objections, but you need to do it as soon as possible, and you need to test them constantly, and give them an out. Give them a chance to say no early. Don't make them feel pressured to continue to maintain this presence that they're going to tell you yes, because that's not doing you any good, and you're making them uncomfortable. And in the end, when they do tell you no, you may have injured a relationship that could be of great value down the road. It's just not a today thing.
Yeah. Well, just to jump in, one of the notes I made earlier as we were going, I did right at the start, I didn't even mention, but like with the motivated money, it's like strategic investment. So who stands to benefit, different things. How do they benefit? And ultimately, if you can include something that incorporates an existing business or an existing investment or interest that someone's got, you're stacking wins. So you've got side deals or different benefits in addition to the investment. And sometimes that takes time and understanding a little bit more about the person that you're talking to. And so it's worth being strung out a little bit to some extent in order to do a deeper dive and customize the pitch and work on that partnership, because ultimately you want your investor working for you. You want them working for their money that they've put into support the business as it moves forward in the capital campaign, support the business as it's coming to market, not just here's the money and like off you go. You're trying to build a crew, right? So we've had stuff like that as well, where I had a partner that or a potential investor that would have been a strategic partner, and ultimately the objection came down to their ability to deliver on the contract they would have received. It wasn't anything that we could do beyond what we'd already tried in terms of convincing them, educating them, providing more information, doing more investigation into how we can serve their investment better. And again, it's still a no, not right now, versus a straight no. But at some point you've got to move on. Okay, we're going to focus here now. We've learned a lot, but ultimately it's wasting time because we're not achieving more milestones. We're doing more research, and at some point you've got to get out of that. So yeah, I think it is a strategic piece as well. You've got to find not just friends and family or people within your network, but people that are working adjacent to or in industries related to or directly in what you're trying to come to market with. You've still got to work on educating them and saying, look, this is where we're different. This is how we overcome this challenge. That also demonstrates expertise, that you've understood their business, you've understood the market in general, you've understood the challenges that they're working on, and you're trying to tailor that solution to them, not just in terms of what's good for you, but what's good for them, not just as an investor and through you, but what's good for them to their existing investments, projects, businesses, and so on.
This is a critical distinction between what we call an ROI investor, who's only investing, and the only benefit that they can get back is you paying them money over and above their investment. That makes it a singular benefit. It makes it a very narrow decision tree, and it's very easy for someone to promise them a higher rate of return than you can offer. So in that case, getting to know should be easier, quicker, by looking at their history, knowing how they've invested in the past, what kind of return they need, what kind of risk can they tolerate, and going down that path. But when you switch to a strategic investor, again, this is where you need to know them. You have to understand how you are going to benefit them, because the benefit to them is they're selling you something or reselling what you make, or it's helping the local community, or something else is going on, and you need to understand how that benefits them. And in some cases, they may not understand, and you have to share, explain, educate them on that. But the more you know your investor, and I think this is basically gets back to the core of everything. The more you know them, understand who they are, how they work, how they tick, what their history has been, where they're going. Then you can make your own assessment. Is this a good deal for the investor? Or have you basically just looking to pick up some money? And that's a poor way to start a relationship. It's not the one that's going to give you that ultimate value you get from an investor over time. And so that's going to be a kind of a overreaching statement. But the more you know about your investor, who they are, how they'll benefit from investing in your company, the better to answer their questions, to educate them about the investment, to point out the benefits to them that will give them as much information as possible in making an investment decision, and it will help them say no if the fit's not good enough. Any final comments or suggestions for our viewers today, Michael?
Keep going. You'll find the right person. You'll find the right people. You'll build the right team. Keep going. Every every no or every objection is a learning opportunity. Also, in most cases, almost every no is a not right now. It's not an actual true no, never. It just depends where you're at, where the investor candidate is at, and how good a job you're doing of telling your story, of bringing them in as a main character in your story, ultimately.
Yeah. And as you put it, every encounter with an investor candidate is a chance to learn. They're all unique. Everyone is different, but if you talk to 10 investor candidates, you'll start seeing some common issues, objections, problems, milestones they want you to accomplish so that this is less risky. This is more likely to succeed, and they understand how they're going to benefit from that success. So homework. Don't walk in with a cold call and expect a check in the first meeting, because then you're not being realistic, and you may get an investor you don't want, which is another topic for another day. But get to know quickly, and as Michael described it, no is quite often call me back later. But by asking the right questions, you know when that later is, what milestones you need to achieve, and you can start maybe even shifting some of your operations, some of your go-to-market to attack and nail down that milestone earlier to help bring that investor on board. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Michael, for being my guest today. I think this is a topic that anyone who's raising money is going to find value and getting to know. And it's not getting to yes, but getting to know, because that frees you up to focus on another investor candidate. And that's what you've got to do to make best use of your very scarce time and money in running a capital campaign. Thank you to everyone who was with us today in the audience. This show, as I said, is recorded, and it'll be posted up on YouTube and LinkedIn. And we'll be back next week where we're going to be talking about the issue of investors who are stuck in yesterday. That basically means that you're proposing change and they don't want change. So how do you deal with those particular people? Is that good, bad, or something that you need to get to know before you even ask them? So thank you.